Hello guys, you're welcome to this session at Naphtali Muhumuza medicalsciences.com, and in this session we want to talk about anatomy and physiology of the GIT, or what we call gastrointestinal tract. And we want to begin with mouth, as we know that mouth is the first part of the GIT, and this mouth contains it contains the cheeks. Then we have, or you can call them the buccal. And that's why we call it a buccal cavity or oral cavity. And this mouth, it has also accessories like teeth, it contains the tongue, and it has the roof, whereby its roof is the palate. And this palate contains both the hard palate and the soft palate. So these are the accessories that we can see in the mouth. Then we have glands, like we have salivary glands. And these salivary glands, there are three, whereby we have the parotid gland, we have the sublingual, we have the submandibular gland, or submaxillary, then we have the sublingual. So these are major components that play a big role in the mouth. Whereby in the mouth, the cheeks, these are the cheeks. These are the ones that enable the food to remain in the mouth. When you swallow food, the cheeks are the ones that maintain the movement, or they maintain the food in the mouth. Then the teeth, they are the one that cuts the food, big food particles into smaller particles, and whereby the tongue is responsible for rolling the food. So we are seeing the teeth doing the work of mastication, that is cutting food into smaller portions. Then the tongue does the work, it rolling of the food to form a food bolus. That as the tongue rolls the food past the hard palate, we have the hard palate, which is the roof. The roof of the mouth, the palate is the one that separates the mouth from the nose, from the nasal cavity. So it is the upper part. And whereby the first one is hard, then towards the esophagus it is soft. So the palate is the roof of the mouth, separating the mouth from the nasal cavity. And it is the one that enables us even to continue breathing when we are eating. So we are seeing that when the tongue rolls, it has the muscles, skeletal muscles, which enables it rolling, that is sideways moving and upward moving, and it rolls the food to form the bolus. And when it is rolling the food, we have the salivary glands. And these salivary glands, they include parotid gland, the submandibular, the sublingual. Parotid is found it is anterior to the ear. That is when you touch here in front of the ear here, you feel saliva coming because it contains the parotid gland. And it is the one which is most affected when you suffer from mumps. Mumps majorly affect these salivary glands. Then the submandibular, they are found down here, where we have the submandibular glands that secrete also saliva. And then we have the sublingual, which are found under the tongue. So this one is found anterior to the ear, near the ear. Then this one, the submandibular, is down here under the mandibles, below the mandibles, and this one is found under the tongue. And these salivary glands, they play a big role, whereby they produce the fluid or the saliva they produce, because we know that they produce saliva. But this saliva they produce, it can either be in serous form, what we call serous, or mucus, or full of mucus, whereby the parotid generally produces much of its secretion is in serous fluid. And then the sublingual, so serous, the parotid, the submandibular, they produce much of the saliva in serous fluid, whereas the sublingual, it is thick. Sublingual for it produces thick mucus. In these ones, it is serous. This one is also serous plus some small mucus, but this one has much of the mucus. And we are going to see that this saliva contains majorly water, that the composition of this saliva, 99.5% is water. Then 0.5% is the solutes. And these solutes include gases like oxygen, carbon dioxide, and nitrogen. They include waste products of metabolism. Some waste products of metabolism are excreted here, like urea, like uric acid, are excreted even via saliva. Then it contains enzymes. Enzymes here, it contains like lysozymes. It contains salivary amylase. It contains lingolipase. It contains immunoglobulins, so those are antibodies, majorly IgA. Then finally, it also contains the electrolytes. And these electrolytes, we see sodium, we see bicarbonate, we see chloride, we see phosphate, we see the chloride ions, and so on. And these two cations, these two anions, that is the bicarbonate and the phosphate, they act as buffer. They are the one that maintains the pH of the mouth in the of the saliva at 6.35 to 6.8. So the pH in the mouth is slightly acidic, and it is maintained by the bicarbonate, the phosphate, and the hydrogen ions. They're the one that maintain this pH to remain slightly acidic. Whereas lysozymes kill microbes. They kill microbes that enter with the food. Then we see salivary amylase working on the starch. And it breaks down starch to maltose and alpha dextrins. So starch is the one that responds. Amylase, for it is the one that, and this work because we swallow very fast. The action of salivary amylase is completed in the stomach during the first hour when it is stored, whereby it is also activated by the pH. As we know that when food reaches in the mouth, it is stored first in the fundus before it is worked on. So it continues to work even in the stomach, including lingolipase, whereby lingolipase is acting on the triglycerides, and it breaks them. For it acts on the short chain. It acts on the short chain triglycerides, whereby it hydrolyzes them to free fatty acids and diacylglycerol. So we are seeing action of two enzymes, that is amylase doing the role of hydrolyzing starch to maltose and alpha dextrin. Then this is in hydrolysis reaction. We are seeing another action of lingolipase hydrolyzing short-chain triglycerides or triacylglycerol in presence of water by breaking the ester bond to produce free fatty acid plus diacylglycerol. And its action is minimal, like 10%. And these two enzymes, they complete their work in the stomach during the storage phase. That's where they are completed. Then we see IgA is protecting the epithelium of the mouth, protects the epithelial lining of the mouth from being attacked by microbes. So it is providing immunity in the mouth. That is the role of IgA. Then we not forgetting water, and water in the form of mucus, and this mucus is the one that lubricates the mouth. The saliva or the mucus in the saliva lubricates the mouth during the action of mastication and rolling to form a food bolus so that the food becomes soft. And even after swallowing, this saliva comes to wash the mouth. And what triggers the production of the saliva is during cephalic phase, this saliva is triggered by thought. When you think about food, smell, you have smelled food, then presence of food in the mouth, when the food has reached the mouth, and even the taste. So when you think about food, you smell food, you get food in the mouth and you taste it, it triggers the medulla to release its impulses via the parasympathetic nervous system. It uses parasympathetic nervous system where it sends its impulses via the cranial nerve 7 and the cranial nerve 9. This is the facial nerve, this is glossopharyngeal nerve. So it sends its impulse via cranial nerve 7 and cranial nerve 9, and it is the one that stimulates these salivary glands to release saliva. And that is how its production is controlled. And people with any damage of these nerves, the cranial nerve 7 and cranial nerve 9, we can see them suffering from what we call dryness of the mouth. And even when you're stressed, these salivary glands do not release the saliva. Whereby there is the condition known as Sjögren's syndrome, which is an autoimmune, which has led to the destruction of these salivary glands, and they are not releasing the saliva. And there is also whereby people have hypersalivation. There is hypersalivation and hyposalivation. Hyper leads to much or excessive production of saliva. Then hypo, there is reduced production, whereby someone's mouth is always dry. And we need to always give them medication to make sure they get this saliva. So this is the anatomy and physiology of the mouth. And to come back briefly on the palate, which has the hard palate and the soft. If this is the mouth, the first half here, from here to here, is the hard palate. This is the hard palate. Then hard palate moves like up to here. Then from here to here is the soft palate. Whereby this soft palate, the last part of the soft palate is uvula. And this uvula is the one that crosses the nasal cavity during swallowing. That when food, we are going to look at swallowing, that when food is coming, food bolus is coming, it places against the soft palate and the uvula crosses the nostril, so that food or water does not go to the nasal area. So this uvula, which is a continuation of the soft palate, is the one that crosses. And as the food and as this tongue is rolling the food in the mouth past the palate, we see this palate is the one that enables the rolling, whereby the tongue uses it as a support to roll this food into the bolus. And we are seeing that it is the one that separates the nasal cavity. This is the nasal cavity from the mouth cavity, and it is the one that enables us even to continue breathing while we are eating. So this is basically what we can discuss under the anatomy and physiology of the mouth. The next thing we want to look at is swallowing. We want to see how do the food, after being rolled to form the bolus, and after being worked on by both mechanical, whereby mechanical digestion is by the tongue and the teeth, which are the accessory organs in the mouth. Then we have seen chemical by action of lysozymes, amylase, and lingual lipase. So we want to see, we have formed this food pellet in the oral cavity. How do we swallow it? And this process is known as deglutition. This process is known as deglutition. So we want to look at deglutition. Deglutition, which is swallowing. This is what we call swallowing. So in the mouth, in the oral cavity, we have formed our food bolus. This is our food bolus. And after the tongue rolling to form it past the hard palate, as the tongue rises using its genioglossus muscles and is moving upwards, it presses this bolus, which we are calling food bolus, past the hard palate. And this hard palate, as the tongue rolls like this, it moves it towards the soft palate. And because this palate is soft, this food bolus pushes the soft palate, and it causes the uvula to close. So we shall see this uvula during the movement of this. It comes and it moves and closes. It closes the nasal cavity, as I told you that this is the nasal cavity. So it closes when this food bolus is moving forward. So this is our food bolus. It presses past the soft, that is at the uvula, and it closes the nasal cavity. Then what happens is that when this food bolus is still moving, it triggers the larynx. It triggers the larynx to raise. We see the raising, you see, without swallowing, the larynx is lowered, isn't it? So when food bolus is coming, the larynx is triggered to raise, and when it raises, it causes the epiglottis to close. So we see it rising. This larynx rises from this position to this, and after rising, now the epiglottis closes. Remember, so the epiglottis, which is at this position, it closes the larynx, which always continues to form the trachea. And why is it closing? We don't want the food bolus to enter into the trachea and enter into the respiratory. This one can make you to die in case food enters into the larynx. So during swallowing, we are seeing the food bolus also via the cranial nerve 9 and the vagus nerve. They trigger the larynx to raise and causing the epiglottis to cover or to close the larynx. And when it closes, we are seeing now the only option of food to move is into the esophagus. So the food bolus moves into the esophagus via the orolarynx. This is the orolarynx. Orolarynx is here. Then this is the larynx. As we know that the pharynx is divided into 3, whereby we have the orolarynx, oropharynx. This is oropharynx. We have nasolarynx, nasopharynx, and we have laryngo. We have laryngopharynx. pharynx. So it is divided into three: oral, nasal, and laryngolarynx. This is the pharynx. And whereby the orolarynx is here, the nasolarynx is up here, and then the laryngo is the one that opens into the esophagus. So it is the last part of the pharynx. So when food bolus has reached into the laryngolarynx, there is a place here before we enter into the esophagus. In the esophagus, it has what we call the upper esophageal sphincter. So as this food bolus is being moved by peristaltic movements, we are going to see it reaching into the upper esophageal sphincter, which is always closed. So, but when the food bolus comes, it is triggered to open, to allow these peristaltic movements of the esophagus. So as we have seen, so when food reaches into the esophageal sphincter, we have phases of swallowing, whereby phase number one is voluntary. Voluntary means it is controlled. Then pharyngeal, and this voluntary phase, which can be controlled, is the one that enables the food bolus to move from the, it enables the food bolus to move from oropharynx to laryngopharynx. And it is controlled because that part is made up of skeletal muscles. Then we are seeing the pharyngeolarynx. For it enables the food bolus to move via from the laryngopharynx into the esophagus via the upper esophageal sphincter. That is pharyngeal phase of deglutition. Then the esophageal stage is whereby the food bolus is moved from the esophagus to the stomach. And this food passes via what we call lower esophageal sphincter. It is always closed. That is the swallowing stage, or what we call deglutition. But as we move on, under anatomy, we still normally discuss about histology. Normally talk about histology, whereby histology in the mouth, it is made up of non-keratinized. In the mouth, we see it is made up of non-keratinized, stratified squamous epithelia. Why this squamous epithelia, which is stratified, is because there is harsh conditions of the food which is hot. So this one it enables the replacement of the destroyed cells by the hot food. So that is, it is a protective, it plays a protective role, what we call from abrasion of the mouth cavity. That is why it is non-keratinized. And the muscles in the mouth, they are skeletal. Then when we go to esophagus, this esophagus, the epithelial lining is still non-keratinized, stratified squamous epithelia. That is the one surrounding the mucosa, whereby it has the mucosa layer, it has the submucosa, and it has the mascularis. Then it ends with adventitia. So this is the histology of the esophagus, whereby the mucosa layer has this epithelium, and it has also what we call the alveolar. It has the lamina propria. And this lamina propria is the one that contains the connective tissue and major areola and the blood vessels. Then we have also the submucosa, which is majorly where there is the connective tissues being supplied, the blood vessels, the nerves are supplied via the submucosa. Then the muscularis. If we talk about the muscularis, is that if this is the oesophagus, let me assume this is the oesophagus. In this oesophagus, we said it has the lower esophageal sphincter and the upper esophageal sphincter. And the first, if I divide this oesophagus into three parts, this is the first, second, and the third. The muscles in the first part of the oesophagus, it has skeletal. It has skeletal muscles. Then in the second half of the oesophagus, we have both skeletal and smooth muscles. Then in the last third of the oesophagus, we have only smooth muscles. That's why you see at the first point of swallowing, it is voluntary. We can control. But beyond that, we start smooth muscles and they are involuntary. You cannot control. Whenever the food has reached the laryngopharynx, you can no longer control. That is the muscularis, whereby it is made up of the outer longitudinal, we have the outer longitudinal and the inner sacral. So it has two layers, the outer longitudinal and the inner sacral muscles. This is what we see in the, then for it does not have serosa, it has adventitia, which makes it to attach on the trachea. So it has no serosa, but it is adventitia. And the role of this upper oesophageal is the one that controls movement or entry of food in the oesophagus. Then this lower oesophageal is the one that controls the entry of food from the oesophagus into the stomach. That is its role. And we see that this oesophagus, it joins the stomach, it joins the mouth and the stomach, and it passes via what we call the esophageal hiatus. This esophagus, when it is joining into the stomach, it passes through the esophageal hiatus. It is an opening towards through the diaphragm where it passes. And there are people with the condition whereby the stomach moves upward through the hiatus. The stomach, which is supposed to be in the left hypochondriac region, moves via the diaphragm, via the hiatus where the esophagus passes. And the upward movement of the stomach via the hiatus leads to a condition known as hiatus hernia. Hiatus hernia, whereby we see the stomach moving from its left hypochondriac region up via the hiatus, esophageal hiatus space. Then another condition we can see is that there are people whereby these lower esophageal sphincter muscles stop working, and whenever food, we know in the stomach, if this is the stomach, and the stomach produces hydrochloric acid. So failure of the cardiac sphincter and the lower esophageal sphincter to close well, we see the acid produced in the stomach and the gastric juice moving into the oesophagus. And when it moves in the esophagus, it causes burning sensation, or what we call heartburn. So heartburn is caused by the cardiac sphincter and lower esophageal sphincter to fail to close when the food bolus has passed. So we see the hydrochloric acid coming up, causing what we call heartburn. And this one is known as GAD. This condition is known as GAD, which is gastroesophageal reflux disease. Gastroesophageal reflux disease. How does it come about? Lower esophageal sphincter and the cardiac sphincter fails to close. Then the hydrochloric acid moves up and it is always felt as heartburn because of the acid going into the esophagus. So we have talked about conditions which affect the mouth, especially the mumps caused by the paramyxovirus, which affects majorly the salivary glands. We have seen GAD, failure of the lower esophageal to close after the food bolus has passed, leading to acid moving up, leading to gastroesophageal reflux disease. And this disease is normally treated by giving antacids and giving proton pump inhibitors. Antacids like magnesium sulfate. We can also give proton pump inhibitors like ranitidine. That is how we can manage these patients. We have also seen another condition known as hiatus hernia, whereby the stomach moves via the esophageal hiatus space, leading to what we call hiatus hernia, and this hernia might require surgery to bring back the stomach in its position. Thank you so much for listening. This is what we can talk about anatomy and physiology of the mouth and the esophagus. We have seen what happens in the mouth, whereby in the mouth is majorly rolling, then mechanical, that is breakdown of food into smaller particles, then the lung rolls it to form a food bolus, and it moves past the palate, hard palate, causing the food bolus to move to the laryngolarynx, to the orolarynx, then to laryngopharynx, then it enters into the esophagus. Then we saw the soft palate ending with the uvula, which closes the nasal cavity, preventing food from going into the nose and water. Then we saw also the larynx during swallowing rising up, causing the epiglottis to close to prevent food from going into the respiratory tract. Then food moves via the esophagus. Then we have also seen their histology, whereby the epithelial lining in the mouth and esophagus is non-keratinized squamous epithelial for protection against harsh conditions. Then we have seen the esophagus for it having divided into three, whereby there is the first half, second, and the third. Whereby the first is skeletal, the second is both skeletal and smooth muscles, that is the muscularis layer, and the last one is smooth muscles. And we have said for it, it does not have serosa, but it has adventitia. Thank you so much for listening.